Doctors' jaws dropped when they heard how a 62-year-old amateur baker's bloody kitchen accident gave her relief from joint pain, thanks to a cheddary baking yeast that repairs and protects joint tissue for 87% of men and women, a yeast you might already have in your bread box. Hi there, my name is Dr. Ryan Shelton, and I'd like to tell you how a retired amateur baker named Nancy from Anchorage, Alaska, triggered the biggest joint health discovery of this century. And it came just in time, because her joint pain had ravaged her otherwise happy life. She was suffering from the same crippling effects of joint pain that might be weighing you down too, such as aggravating discomfort that lingers for days until you're afraid the pain will haunt you the rest of your life. Stiff fingers robbing your ability to sew, hold a pen to sign a check, or even change the channel with a remote. Pain in your back, your hips, or your knees, so it's a monumental task just to get out of the house. And it just gets worse and worse until you end up missing family events, birthdays, holidays, and really the loneliness is overwhelming. It slows you down at work because of joint stiffness and pain, and coworkers looking at you sideways like you're too old to be worth your salt anymore. Stiff and aching wrists making it a struggle to squeeze a toothpaste tube, to lift heavy casserole dishes out of the oven, or to even twist faucets or doorknobs, so you just feel like an invalid in your own home. Well, Nancy felt all this and more. Being from Alaska, she'd always considered herself handy, but with her joint problems, she now had trouble working on her car, holding a nail to swing a hammer, or tying a fishing line. And the world outside her home now felt so much farther away because it was so difficult to just move around. Inside, her knitting needles sat on the shelf, and her wrench sat in the garage, constant reminders that she couldn't enjoy her old hobbies of knitting or working on her car. It made her home feel like a museum of hobbies and passions that her joint pain had stolen from her. When Nancy's daughter brought her family over for Sunday dinner, she noticed how stiffly Nancy walked and how she winced sometimes bending over in the kitchen. She asked Nancy, "Mom, are you sure you're okay to keep living by yourself if you're struggling so much to get around?" It was like a punch in the gut, hearing her daughter treat her like a fragile old woman. It made Nancy worry about the future. She was only 62. She wanted to enjoy another 30 years of life, but this was how she'd spend it? Suffering with stiff, aching joints with everyone acting like she was a glass statue? And worst of all, she actually felt as fragile as glass, all because of her aging joints. The thought depressed her. The only thing keeping Nancy smiling was her weekly Saturday morning baking adventures with her granddaughter. But when a bloody disaster shattered their tradition, Nancy almost gave up. I'll tell you those grisly details in just a second, because I can't help but thank God that disaster led Nancy to discover a cheddary baking yeast that protects and repairs joint tissue. The fascinating part is the yeast is only used in a certain type of bread that might even be in your bread box right now. Thanks to a unique molecule inside this cheddary yeast, Nancy's joint pain vanished. It vanished, letting her feel 15 years younger. Her fingers regained flexibility, and she went back to whistling away the day, joyfully knitting gifts and treasures for her family. Her wrists hurt less, so she could work on her car again, and faucets and knobs, they didn't hurt to turn. Her house stopped feeling like a museum of old hobbies, and now it felt like a playhouse and a workshop, and most of all, like a home again. Her hips and knees no longer hurt to move. She visited friends more often and even took up hiking to explore the beautiful Alaskan wilderness with her family. Best of all, her family stopped treating her like a fragile glass statue, and Nancy regained her confidence that she was a tough, strong person with decades of life left to live. So, how did a cheddary yeast give her back all this? It contains a molecule which NYU doctors said improved grip strength and joint mobility by reducing inflammation and protecting cartilage in over 1,000 patients. The joint-restoring molecule inside this cheddary yeast is rescuing men and women all over the world from aching, restrictive joints. Listen to how it's helped them and how it could help you.
Before finding this solution, I had stiff hands, wrists, and fingers. I wasn't able to garden like I wanted to. After trying it, I no longer wake up with my hands in excruciating pain and numbness. My hands and wrists are less painful and have less stiffness. I'm able to do some gardening. Try this solution. It could help you too.
Prior to finding this solution, I had painful knees and apprehension about my future walking abilities. Since I started taking it, I have experienced pain relief and easier movement. I can now walk my dog without pain. This works.
That's the kind of life-changing benefit this natural miracle can give you. I'd like to show you how this cheddary yeast that could be in the bread in your pantry right now holds the secret to restoring your joint tissue, giving you back the pain-free flexibility and mobility of your younger days. Although, I have to warn you, it's only a matter of time before the pharmaceutical corporations develop this discovery into a $1,000 drug, and then they start bullying the little guys, like me, who give away this information for free. So I want you to make sure you watch this presentation right now, because it won't be up forever. Stick with me for the next few minutes, and I'll show you how my friend Nancy stumbled onto this natural miracle that could set you free from your joint pain. Now, when I first heard of it, I was shocked and excited because of my professional experience. Like I said, my name is Dr. Ryan Shelton, and I'm the medical director at Zenith Labs. I live in sun-soaked Hawaii with my wife and 2 boys, where I'm a licensed primary care physician. I've guided hundreds of one-on-one patients to their health goals, and my research and best-selling books have helped literally hundreds of thousands of men and women over 40. I've dedicated my medical career to 2 things: teaching my patients how to achieve their ideal health no matter their age, and uncovering the next natural breakthrough in medicine. So you can imagine how surprised I was when Nancy contacted me with her story of how a flavorful yeast soothed her joint problems. You see, I'd helped Nancy in the past, so she came to me with this mystery. It was in the middle of the most discouraging bout with joint pain that she'd ever faced. Maybe your joints have sometimes made you feel like Nancy, missing events with family or friends because hip or knee pain makes it hurt to walk, or losing hobbies like knitting, gardening, or tinkering in the garage because of aching fingers and wrists. It made Nancy feel 20 years older, like she already belonged in a nursing home. The only joy she had left was baking with her granddaughter. Every weekend, Nancy's granddaughter came over and they'd bake breads or cookies or cakes. Joint pain had taken away so much from Nancy, but she still had this weekly ritual left. Then one Saturday morning, when Nancy's son-in-law dropped off her granddaughter, he had the nerve to ask, "Are you sure you're okay taking her? I know you're not moving around as well as you used to." Nancy was stunned. Just because her hands and knees hurt sometimes and were stiff didn't mean she couldn't be trusted with her own grandchild. He tried to back off his insult. I just mean you don't need to try to do everything you used to. It might not be possible anymore, you know?" Nancy faked a smile and said they'd be fine. Saturday mornings were for baking with her granddaughter. After everything else her joint pain had taken from her, she wasn't going to let it take this. It was all she had left. Her son-in-law left and Nancy and her granddaughter got to baking. And then the unthinkable happened. As Nancy pulled a pan of brownies out of the oven, the gnawing pain in her wrists exploded under the weight. She dropped the glass dish, it smashed into the floor and shattered. Jagged glass and steaming hot brownies splattered over the kitchen. Nancy swept her granddaughter into her arms and sat her on the counter to escape the razor-sharp shards on the floor. Nancy cut her foot, bleeding all over the tile floor. Luckily, her granddaughter wasn't hurt, but she could have been.